Hey everybody, it's me, Honey. So happy that you came back to watch and listen. There's a lot to talk about in cannabis these days, whether you're working with hemp or with medical marijuana, and I'm here to help you figure all of that out. So this is the Cannabivarum video podcast, and thank you for spending a little time with me today. I hope you learn a lot. I hope you're not overwhelmed, but if you are, I'm right here. And I'll be here for a long time to help you walk through the new language of cannabis. So stand by for a minute. Let me get this podcast thing going. I'm working off of Anchor. I don't know if I told you that before or not, but it's a free podcasting host. And boy, they just make everything really simple for you. And I need that right now because during this last 10 months of COVID, I've been studying up, trying to pivot and do something different with my cannabis educational business. And so in order for me to get all of this news out of my head and into yours, we're going to try this podcasting thing. It's a lot of fun. If any of you want to follow along in this adventure and journey with me, podcasting and doing the video thing, I'm brand new at it. This is like my third or fourth time just doing the video thing. Done a bunch of podcasts already on Anchor, and then decided to come into this type of casting as well. So, like I said, there's a lot to learn. Fortunately, we have the internet, and we can learn from internet classes, and that's how I'm learning. I paid for a course in podcasting. It's about $700 on sale. And I'm learning an awful lot in YouTube and social media networking and all of that sort of things. SEO, that's search engine optimization, all of that stuff. So, it's 2020. It's October. We need to pivot if we're still not getting that moolah in our bank yet. So here we go. Stand by for a second while I set up the podcast on Anchor, and then we'll start. By the way, I do write out my script mostly, and then I embellish on it, just so you know. I want to look you in the eyes when I'm telling you this stuff, so not only am I telling you what I truthfully believe myself and understand as scientific fact, I want you to feel that deep down in my bones from all of my body language too. What I'm telling you, I truly believe, and what I learned from the scientist who did all that hard work proving it. So here we go. Well, hello, my friends. It's just a couple of weeks before the election, and thank you so much for tuning into a little chat about the history, politics, and science of cannabis, as well as some practical advice in navigating the path to feeling better. You do that by using some form of safe cannabis that you're in control of by titrating microdoses. What, you're saying? Yeah, that may sound a little perplexing, but I'm here to help you understand the new and evolving language of cannabis. Using cannabis as a medicine, whether it's hemp or medical marijuana, is not like taking a pill once or twice a day. It's a little more complex because of all the choices we have in the way we consume it, the variable strengths and compounds within it, how often we choose or need to use, and more. I'm here to help you figure it all out, but just know this. You'll turn out being your own guinea pig, and that's perfectly okay. So when we come back, I'm going to teach you two very, very important things about cannabis. In fact, I think they're the most important things. One, how to stay in complete control of your cannabis meds so that you never have to worry about being too high or missing the effect altogether. And the second thing is, I'm going to show you how to manage your cannabis in the most economical way in this era of no insurance for medications called cannabis. So, I'll be right back. Stand by. Now, for all my video buddies, that's what we would call the intro. And I want to remind you that I'm doing these in 5-minute segments because that's how the podcasting companies like them, is all I can tell you. Doing them in 5-minute segments gets them there faster, gets you more commercials in between, la, 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 la. So that was not 5 minutes. But because my next segment is a little more involved and I didn't want to split it up, I shortened the first segment so the next segment could be a little longer and still make it under the 5-minute time limit. All right. So this is, oh, sorry. Need to put that in, that first segment in and name it. So this is Cannabivarum 007, woohoo! And let me just type that out on this Cannabivarum 007. We're going to add that to our library. We're not going to publish it yet. Get that little chewy thing out of my mouth. Keeps rolling around my tongue every time I say a new word, and I'm like, wait. And I'll have a sip of 7-Up in my mother's beautiful old glass. I'm 66, and when I was 3 or 4 years old, she had these glasses, so I still love drinking out of them and remembering seeing her use them. All right, here we go with segment 2. So thanks for joining the Cannabivarum conversation today. Cannabivarum is Latin for cannabis truth. And I'm on a mission to help you understand what this live plant can do for our world and your quality of life. So remember to consider the internal goodness of the person you're voting for and determine whether or not they have a benevolent attitude about this society and its future, or are just power hungry, and vote. We have the ability to create over 25,000 brand new manufacturing goods. Why in the world would I say that particular number, 25,000? Because in this country, before 1937, we used to produce over 25,000 cannabis products. So, Google that. We can do it again. We can really do it again, and much, much more. Now that we understand that we can make all plastic products out of renewable, earth-friendly cannabis and stop the contamination and destruction of this planet by replacing petroleum plastics with cannabis plastics that are biodegradable. Now think of all those paper products in the grocery store that you buy every day. Toilet paper, paper towels, paper plates, cups, bowls, and so on. All the cartons and containers that hold our milk and eggs and package our meats and bag our groceries. We can change our world for the better and be a global leader in manufacturing cannabis products. Did you know that Henry Ford's dream car, his dream car, was built out of cannabis parts? It's true. Google it. Composite pieces made of cannabis and wheat fibers and glue. He ran 40,000 cars off of 10,000 acres of renewable cannabis that was made into biofuel. He started building that car in 1928, just 92 years ago, when we were already producing over 25,000 cannabis products in this country. America was built on the back of hemp. With the 15th century arrival of the first Europeans, they were ordered to plant cannabis to build the first navy. You couldn't get a ship across the ocean without a sail and rope. And of course, hemp made paper and cloth and oil and bedding and medicine and inebriants. People need relief from the toil and misery of life. So forgive me, First Americans, the indigenous. We now know that your original tribal councils were the first to begin this country. And although I'm loath to say I don't yet know that history, and if any of you out there would like to enlighten us about the first people here and their use of cannabis, I'm sure my audience would love to hear those stories. Please consider coming on and telling us. You can drop me a note at cannabaverum@gmail.com. That's CANNABAVERUM@gmail.com. Okay, I'll be right back with how to stay in complete control of your cannabis effects and how to manage your cannabis costs effectively, whether it's hemp or medical marijuana. This is always free information to help you increase the quality of your life. So stay tuned. Be right back. Okay, now that little segment was 4 minutes and 8 seconds. So see why writing out my script and then embellishing it, of course, to speak personally to you so that I can look up and see you eye to eye. That's what makes my fancy happy. So the next part is segment 3. Let me just save that segment 2. We're going to call it CV007. Segment 2. There we go. All right, let's go on to segment 3. And just so you know, my podcast generally lasts 20 to 30 minutes. And there is no time limit. You know, they could be 5 minutes or 2 minutes or an hour and a half. It's just the amount of time I think we can all digest the information that I have to give for you. It's a lot of information, and we're going to go over and over and over of it. And you'll also see, you'll have these podcasts available to you on my website, so you can go back and listen to any of them or send them on to your friends or whatever. Hey, guess what? I just had an idea about next week or sometime real soon. I want to have a little show and tell of the things that I do personally, the way I use cannabis, and I use both hemp and medical marijuana. I have a card, but I want to show you my goodies and my toys and tell you why I chose the toys that I did and why I choose the cannabis that I do when I go to the dispensary and, have 100 different things I can look at and try to figure out which one is the one I want that'll do me the best. So, on to segment 3 now of the podcast. Hey, thanks for joining me again today. I have some great news for those of you trying to produce a new cannabis product. The Food and Drug Administration, our FDA, now has a new cannabis application for review of lab, animal, and human testing data that your company is doing on your cannabis product. So this is big news because since cannabis is still federally classified as a Schedule 1, other federal regulatory boards have been, not wanting to jump into this game. But now the FDA is, and that's probably because all of these states have gone rogue, if you will, and they're decreeing their own regulations about cannabis according to what the majority of people in those states want. So the states are all flipping, some a lot slower than others. And after 2020, well, you're going to see in November that there are over, and I've said this before, over 1,500 cannabis bills on the ballot for November. So that's quite a lot of states saying, hey, we want to change things. Okay. Oh dear, I've forgotten where I was, and now I need to tell you. Oh, here we go. This was not unexpected about the FDA. Getting FDA approval in the cannabis industry will give shoppers real relief and belief in the safety of the product. When there is no regulatory agency oversight happening otherwise. So safety should always be the first priority in medication, and live plants can have lots of contamination issues to mediate. It's a live plant. Hello. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, bacteria, molds, mildews, heavy metals, la 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 la. I say it all the time. You know I'm on my contamination soapbox. So just want to keep you all safe. It, it, um, it's the highest priority, of course. So the public approves of the stringent regulatory discernment process for safety for the sake of the consumer. That's the FDA. And having FDA approval will instantly create that certain bond of trust for the product. This is a big deal after our government has tried to keep it out of our reach for 92 years. Speaking of contamination, Marijuana Today podcast reports the finding of contaminated blunt papers. What? That just made my head explode. That was like a real smack in the mouth. Well, for crying out loud. Blunt papers. And so it's a real lesson in protecting yourself and why we need the FDA. For those of you who don't know the language of cannabis yet, blunt papers are what small companies use to wrap cannabis into big, fatty, cigar-sized joints instead of those thin little cigarette-type papers. Whenever and wherever they got the blunt wraps, they didn't bother to check for contamination. Again, exactly why we need the FDA. And those companies were not testing the beginning results. I'm sorry, the end results. They may have been testing their beginning result, their cannabis, but they didn't test the end result, what the cannabis was wrapped in. Testing methods matter. And if they're only testing for, certain batches, they're not testing for all of it. The FDA will protect the public from harmful stuff like that. So that's why learning about the FDA accepting applications for testing your product is really, really great news today. And we're still only 2 weeks out from the November election. Hang on, I'll be right back. So that was segment 3. And we're going to save it, and we're going to didn't get to name it. I pushed the wrong button. But that's okay. I pushed the wrong button in the Anchor platform, but I can go back and correct it. So even if you're not wearing your glasses, there's an opportunity to correct. We're going to rename that segment, and we're going to call it CV007 segment 3. There we go. It's hard to make a new habit. So in trying to keep everything organized the way I'll hopefully remember it next time, there's a little process. And it's good to start writing your process down, because then you make a checklist and you just, hang that checklist right here out of sight, give it a glance. Yeah, I did that, I did that, I did that, I did that. Okay, it's all done. And that way you don't forget anything. So I'm a big fan of checklists and little scrap papers telling me, oh yeah, don't forget, and Scotch tape or sticky notes or whatever it takes to keep it all up here. Put it on paper first. All right. So let's go into segment 4. We've got several, we've got quite a few segments on this one. There's a lot of important information. So let's get back at it. Hey, I'm back and I've got some ideas about how to change the cannabis culture in your neck of the woods today. Click on the button to dash over to my site and download a letter to your grocer. What? Yep. You want your grocer to start ordering hemp products that will replace tree paper products. Run that letter past your next door neighbors for their signatures too. The more demand we make, the sooner we get that process started. Remember that old adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease? Hey, I want to remind you also that after 10 months in this weird era of COVID-19 and cannabis, if you're already a legal medical marijuana patient who must go into the hospital, rehab, or elder care facilities, you will not be allowed to use your cannabis on their property for a couple of reasons. And those reasons can be overcome if you're willing to make the effort. First of all, since medical marijuana is still classified federally illegal to use, institutions who get federal funding don't want to risk losing those funds. Secondly, none of those institutions have planned for a standard operating procedure involving the use of cannabis that I know of on their property, and they don't know where to begin. However, with the advent of science giving the facts of cannabis and how useful it can be to humans and animals, the wheels of our system are moving towards change. So, it takes time for the laws and regulations to catch up with the demand of the people, but it is happening. I have curated documents from other legal cannabis states with medical institutions that had to figure out the same issues. They've already done it. They came up with policies and procedures and patient release forms that they were willing to share. Thank you. And I have them available for you for free on my website at cannabivarum.com. So just go to my website and download them for free. It's the easiest thing to do. Those documents are templates. They can be edited for any facility to utilize. It's a starting place for them. And they're not the first institution in Florida to do so. So I have to keep reminding myself that we're in the wild, wild west of cannabis. And I want you to remember that too. That's why you and I are having to do all this legwork. Somebody else had to do it for every new product out there that the public wanted. And so that's what we're doing now. We're the grassroots movement to get everybody the good news and good help of cannabis. So right now I'm just going to appeal to those people in my audience who suffer from any kind of immune problem, the kind of inflammatory issues that I have, like arthritis or chronic fatigue or any kind of problem that compounding contaminants with might exacerbate your condition into a trip to see your doctor. Contamination can harm those of us with weak immune systems. People with chronic fatigue. It's not the cannabis, it's the pesticides, the herbicides, the fungicides. I keep having to say it, but I don't mind. Bacteria, molds, mildews, heavy metals. I cannot ingest without serious issues. And if I'm using a concentrate, all those contaminants are concentrated too. So, dear friends and family of mine who are already sick of hearing me jump up and down on my soapbox about this, your youth and invincibility are commendable. Your energy, I wish I had. But we elders know what's in store for your body. Get ready. Now we're using lots more cannabis in different ways, like tinctures and vape pens and drinks and edibles. It bears reminding, while you're concentrating compounds, you're also concentrating contamination. So we can avoid most of that by demanding FDA approval. Coming right back to tell you how to save money on the safe product you're about to choose, and you'll know how to prove its safety too. Stand by. So I just barely made it under the 5-minute mark for that one. It was 4 minutes and 55 seconds. What I'm finding out is that it's about 500 words for 5 minutes. And that's speaking the way I do. I'm kind of musical in the way I speak, they tell me. And so, and I pause a lot, for pregnant effects and stuff like that. I'm a drama queen. What can I tell you? I like the stage, and I like emphasizing important things. So, in a musical tone. So that's me. And here I am. Anyway, back to this. Let's save this segment. And we're going to call it CV 7 segment 4, I believe. Yes. Okay. And then just as soon as that's done spinning its little wheels into production on the Anchor platform, we'll start with segment 5. I'll have a sip. Don't forget to wet your whistle. It helps. Did you know new cannabis nanotechnology is allowing companies to make stuff you can just squirt into your whatever you're drinking, and then you get your meds that way? Very cool. Like a little Mio with cannabis. And it's a diet 7-Up I'm drinking, and woo! I sure don't want to get into drinking too many diet anythings. They're not really good for you. Okay, that's ready. Let's get on with segment 5. So after all those frightening thoughts, the good news is we can make them prove it. We should be vigilant about the safety of what we ingest, and are, by using grocery stores who comply with government standards. We trust everything in the grocery store that we eat. We trust everything in the drugstores that we buy. And we actually trust everything in the dollar stores too. But please, don't buy your cannabis at dollar stores and gas stations. There's a reason for that. Anyway, here's the most important thing you're going to learn about cannabis today. It should be third-party lab tested for contamination and for content. You want to know that what they say is in the bottle without anything else, right? Okay. That's the most important thing to remember about all cannabis. P.S. All street weed is contaminated. Period. All street weed is contaminated. They don't take the time to address lab testing for the safety of their customers. So all street weed is contaminated. But not the stuff that companies are producing with a third-party lab test, because they care about your health. They care about your loyalty as a client. They want you to keep buying their product. They know that your health and well-being and safety is paramount. So look for a scan code on the product box of the lab-tested results of that batch and what's in it or not. That's the only way to protect yourself from unscrupulous companies who only care about their bottom dollar. We have lots of choices out there now, whether you're buying CBD from a hemp shop online or going to a medical marijuana dispensary. We have plenty of choices in Florida. So if that product does not have a scan code leading to the certificate of analysis, we call it the COA, that has all that stuff listed on it, just put it down and check out the next product. By the way, all Florida medical marijuana dispensaries must comply with by producing a certificate of analysis on everything they sell you. So there is a COA on all their products at the beginning of their production and at the end. So Florida medical marijuana patients are safe because of the regulations. So, but you know, it's not the same for hemp products that are being sold everywhere. So what you really want to do is check out the COA for a hemp product that is not coming from a medical marijuana dispensary. Yes, you can buy hemp products at a medical marijuana dispensary. What you're actually purchasing would be the CBD from, you know, that one compound. There are lots of compounds that are also in hemp. Hemp produces mostly the compound CBD. Marijuana produces mostly the compound THC that makes you high. So that's the difference between the two sisters of the parent plant cannabis. So if that product doesn't have a scan code leading to the certificate of analysis, just put it down and go to the next one. Crappy, unregulated end products, for instance, like those blunt papers around the cannabis. The cannabis was okay, but the blunt paper was contaminated. That's testing an end product for that blunt paper as well, or whatever it's wrapped up in, or whatever it comes in, you know. We didn't suffer any of those because our Florida dispensaries are well regulated. But once again, it wasn't the cannabis. It was the company's shortcut miscalculation. Now you know how to find clean cannabis with that certificate of analysis, that third-party lab testing that must be done on your product before you ingest it, right? And you're going to ask for a COA, a certificate of analysis, everywhere. Now I'm going to help you with the cost. Stay tuned. Okay. Barely made the 5-minute thing. I get to talking, and instead of following my own script, which I have regulated in 5-minute segments, or just a little bit less in case I talk too much. All right, so let's just save this one. That was episode that was CV 007, segment 5. Okay. Sorry, this is taking me just a little a little bit of time. I just realized a flaw in my little system, and I'm trying not to confuse myself. So I've got 5 segments already, and this is going to be the beginning of segment 6. And we'll just keep going down here and down to here. And then okay, so I'm just changing the segment order a smidge so that I don't confuse myself when I'm blitzing past these little notes that I've got written to myself in my stuff. So, okay. So now we're starting again with segment 6. And I will, I have 7 segments in this particular podcast. Generally, I only have 2 or 3, sometimes 4. But this was a big newsy day. All right, segment 6. Here we go. So now I want to help you with the cost. If you're an old hippie like me, blowing $200 a month on street weed, you'll need to save about $150 just to get a pot doctor appointment, and that's kind of a cheap one. I guess that's the average. 150 is about the average. And you have to get you have to see a pot doctor every 7 months. And then you have to get a $75 pot card annually. And then you should add, at the very least, $50 extra to your normal monthly cost for product. And that's if you're being careful like me. So this is why I told my video audience a little while ago, but this is why in my next episode, we're going to have a little show and tell. And I'm going to show you what I use, the different cannabis toys and devices that I use, and the different ways of delivery that I choose and why, and how much stuff costs. And I'll demonstrate some different things. So, you know, if you've never been to a dispensary before, you really don't know what to expect. And this will be what you can expect. So we'll get to that in a little bit. All right, back to all of that stuff. The new eye candy products that they have at the dispensary, you're going to want to buy them all. It's going to feel like Christmas. You're going to be giddy and overwhelmed, and you'll walk in there kind of nervous and anxious, and you'll walk out like you're walking on a cloud. You can't wait to get in the car, start opening stuff, and get home with it, and smoke or take or whatever, and start feeling better. And it's actually rather sad and comical to just sit in the waiting room of a dispensary and watch people come and go. They come in real, bent over and achy and grouchy, and you know, now they gotta wait and la la la. And then they come out of the dispensary, their eyes are open and smiling, and they're grinning at everybody. You know, they didn't have any meds between the time they went in and came out, but man, their head is certainly happy. All right. You know, I use vape pens, and they're all, and the different vape pens that I choose are different strengths and different types, because you take your morning medicines in the morning and your nighttime medicines in the nighttime and your afternoon stuff in the afternoon. That's why. And if you mix them up, you're going to be awake all night, or you're going to be sleepy all day. So there's a lot to figure out and choose, but it's not hard. There's just a guinea pig period. So the cartridges are filled with an inhaled product that costs about $80. It's a concentrate, and it'll last me a little over a week. You can get, and that's if I'm using that vape pen throughout the day. I get a different cartridge for nighttime, and that one is even smaller but lasts me a month, because I only use it at night before I go to bed with a couple of puffs. So you see, I'm using one vape pen all day long, or several times a day, and then I use another vape pen at night to get to be able to sleep and turn off this creative brain. I've got, you know, ideas flashing through at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So you can get 1/8 of just regular flour of just regular cannabis flower for about $35. That's expensive, but it's clean. It's really, really, really seriously clean, and it's top shelf. It's no gross ganja. It's good stuff. So, so we microdose to make it last longer and to keep our tolerance down. Those are all things I'll tell you about. And if you want to see the toys I use, can't wait to see you on my next video podcast too. And we're going to talk about microdosing the raw flower. So come back to me in just a second. All right. I I still got more talking done than I did podcasting for the Anchor podcast, but that's okay. There is a lot to go over. CV 007 segment 6. All right, it's doing its little thing. I don't know how that happened. We're going to put a segment in here. We're going to split this up and put a segment in here. There we go. And that's done now, so let's get back at it. Here's saving trick number 1 for saving money with your potty pot. Buy hemp raw flower first. If you're not even a Florida medical marijuana patient, try this first. Go to a hemp shop or buy some good hemp online and try it first instead of medical marijuana. If you have IBS, chronic fatigue, any of those inflammatory issues going on, try hemp first because it could alleviate a lot of the inflammation and spasming going on in your body and calm anxiety and stuff like that. So no need to go through all the ballyhoo of finding an extra, pot doctor and getting a card and then paying more for medical marijuana product when hemp might do the trick for you. So, and you can buy hemp over the counter in all 50 states. So you don't need a license. Using the raw form is cheaper because it doesn't cost the company any further expense to produce it. They grow it, test it, put it in a jar, slap a label on it, and you buy it. So purchasing the raw hemp or raw medical marijuana product even will save you money because there's less production involved. Anytime they have to, make up a new tool and squeeze juice out and press and extract and test and do, it's not cheap to produce a fine product. It's not cheap. So that's only half the story. Here's another saving trick. This is number 2, about how to save money for your cannabis, with your cannabis. I'm really careful, and I don't just hold the pen in my hand all day like a cigarette or a pencil, or a security blanket, which is what we smokers tend to do. I used to be a cigarette smoker for 25 years, long time ago, 30 years ago. And, that hand-to-mouth thing, it was your security blanket. You just held on to it. And when I first got my vape pen, my body, even after 30 years of abstinence of a cigarette, my body went right back into holding it, wanting it, just picking it up, playing with it. Don't do that. This is your medicine. And it's real easy to treat it like something else, but this is your medicine. So it's, you want to use the device, and then put the device down and walk away. Use the device, put the device down, walk away. It's not like alcohol. You're dosing a chemical compound for your issues, not socializing with a friend. So you wouldn't offer your friends your blood pressure or thyroid meds for fun. And besides all that, it's expensive. So here's trick number 3. Since you're medicating to relieve your issues, you'll need to find your sweet spot dose. What's that mean? That means, remember I told you you're going to be your own guinea pig? You're going to titrate tiny microdosing amounts, micro amounts of product until you find the right dose that gives you the benefit or the relief that you're looking for. So you really want to know what you're looking for to begin with. You want to know, am I looking to stop the pain? Am I looking to stop anxiety? Am I looking to just feel more bright and energetic? All kinds of reasons why people are using cannabis. So microdosing and titrating those micro doses, which means the tiniest amount of that product, however it's coming, and you keep lifting that amount until you find your spot. Stopping right there. Had a lot of pauses on that issue. And so I'm sure I'll go back in and probably chop some of those long pauses out in that place where I wasn't even looking at you or talking or whatever. That was segment, holy cow, 7. All right, stopping there for a second, and this will be our last segment. So, it's been a packed, pardon me, that was my throat going, it's been a packed, it's been a packed podcast, and I'm really tickled that you've hung in here with me this long. You've learned how to figure out safe cannabis, how to microdose, and how to titrate. And I've given you 3 excellent ways of saving money when purchasing your cannabis, whether you're choosing hemp from an over-the-counter place, or whether you're going to a medical marijuana dispensary as a medical marijuana patient. So there's a few more tricks that I can tell you about. Google pot doctor near me and let your fingers do the walking to find the cheapest pot doctor you can. More about that later, but that's the best way to do that. They have the ability to get you what you need in order to start buying legal pot. So just go see the pot doctor. It'll be a 10-minute visit with him. He might check your heart with a stethoscope. Who knows? He might take your pulse. I doubt it. He might ask you a few historical medical questions, but your pot doctor will not be your general practitioner. He's just your pot doctor, and he's the middle guy that is there to get you the card that you need so you can go to the special store to buy clean weed. That's all it is. Now, don't get me wrong. I know some really, really fabulously educated and brilliant cannabis specialists in their own medical fields of specialty. I know a gynecologist who's a pot specialist. I know an ER doctor, like a MASH doctor, who's been a cannabis specialist for eons. And I know a neurologist who was the first cannabis specialist here in Melbourne. I know some pretty outstanding medical professionals, and they are my gurus. I go to them for information. They're, in the process of really utilizing cannabis for their patients now and in all kinds of different ways. So we'll be talking about those particular wonderful cannabis doctors who have had many, many, many years of science and education in cannabis, not like the typical pot doctor that you can Google and find, a few minutes away from your house, that just became a pot doctor in order to get a little more money. That's the name of the game for some. Anyway, that wasn't nice. Not all, doctors aren't that way. Listen, doctors come out of med school with horrendous bills, and now that they can begin utilizing cannabis for their patients, that's a big damn deal, and we commend them for it. I'm just anxious for them to learn as much as and more than I know. So I always like for my doctor to know more than me. I don't know why. Let's get back to it. This will be our last one. Our last segment. I think I stopped at after the third trick. But let's go back there. Let's go back to saving trick number 3. I'm not real sure I said that, but it bears repeating. I just want to talk about relieving your issues and finding your sweet spot dose a little bit more. When you microdose, you're not wasting it needlessly, overusing it, and creating a low tolerance for yourself. I know I said that before, but there's no need to create a tolerance for yourself when you microdose. So that you don't need to keep increasing the amount to more and more and more and more after you already found your sweet spot. So, this is how we create good dosing habits for ourselves, is to microdose and titrate appropriately. Get a little scrap of paper, jot down the type of cannabis that you're using, what hour you used, how you're using it, and how much you ingest it. If it's a 1 or 2 second puff on a vape pen, then 1 or 2 second. And what kind was it? They call the ones that you take in the daytime sativas, and the ones that you take at night indicas. That's not really correct, but that's what you're going to hear. So I just say I want one for bright, daytime, and they point me in the direction and tell me some silly name they named it. And then I tell them I want one for evening for going to sleep. And then I want one for in the middle of the day for hybrid, that would be a hybrid of both. So there's all kinds of ways to do that. All right. This microdosing by titration is the key to saving lots of money on your cannabis. And we don't puff and pass anymore, especially not during COVID. These are our meds. That's why I'm talking to you about wrapping your head around medicating your issues. We are not socializing with our meds. And we're not talking about adult use here either. That's a whole nother discussion. Adult use is not what we're doing here. Here, we're talking about titrating medicine to find your sweet spot that will help you and relieve your medical issues. So, don't forget to jot stuff down. That little piece of paper, that little piece of paper will tell you everything you need to know in just a short amount of time. Short amount of figuring it out. Jot it down, take the meds, jot it down. Okay, try again. Say we're vaping and that 1 or 2 second hit you didn't feel anything. So about 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, try it again. Try another 1 or 2 second hit off of your vape pen. Put your vape pen down. Wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and try and see how you feel. If you feel good, jot it down. I feel it. Start to feel good. And then wait. See how long that effect lasts. That way you can really get a handle on how much meds you're ingesting and what the cost is going to be for you. So, also, when using the raw flower, you can put a teensy tiny little bit that you pulled off of the flower and put it into a 1-hitter pipe and puff it like a cigarette. There's a little math to do to figure out how much meds you're getting in vape pens or pipes, 1-hitter pipes like that. But usually the product in the cartridge is going to tell you, the company is going to tell you how much product is in the cartridge and how many typical puffs one would get from that particular cartridge. So you're going to start feeling effects in just a puff or two, but everybody is different. Some may need more or less. You're your own guinea pig. So, dose, wait, notate, repeat, if necessary. Dose, wait, notate. Stand by for a second. All right, that was segment 8, and I'm still not through. But we're getting close to it. Okay, that's almost published, and all right, I guess this is going to be the last one. And here we go. If you're not a smoker, you can use hemp tinctures or nanotechnology for water additives. More expensive, but not as much as medical marijuana. I've got a fabulous way to make the raw hemp you just bought even more potent and effective. It's an easy but kind of messy recipe given to me by one of our nation's top cannabis scientists, the Reverend Dr. Kimron DeCesar. He's the Chief R&D Officer for Steep Hills Lab in California, and he's my cannabis mentor. Dr. DeCesar says that to add a measure of olive oil to raw, finely chopped up cannabis in an airtight container for 24 hours. Then begin using the product in tiny amounts. Remember, we are our own guinea pig. And until science pricks our finger for blood to determine which chemovars we need from cannabis, We're just stuck being our own guinea pig. If you want that recipe, shoot me an email at cannabaverum@gmail.com. cannabaverum@gmail.com. You know, cannabaverum means cannabis truth in Latin. And that's what I am out to tell you all about, always, for free. So, happy to send it to you for free, of course. You can always Google that information too, but then you wouldn't see all the interesting things on my website I'm collecting for your edification and enjoyment. Why use raw? Because science tells us that the acidic form of the cannabis compounds are way more potent and cause more beneficial effects than a decarboxylated product, one that's been heated. That way you can use less product to get more benefit. Using less product saves you money. That way you can have a little extra money to spend on your sweetie's birthday coming up, or in the dispensary on more expensive medical marijuana. If you're already a Florida patient, that is. You have the helm, as Louis, my husband, used to always tell me when we were sailing the ocean blue. So now you've learned how to save money on cannabis by checking your physical habits, by using raw flower, by starting with hemp for certain issues instead of medical marijuana, and by microdosing your product so you're not overusing, abusing, or creating a tolerance. Your brains must be exploding. Mine sure did when I began learning all this. But if you have questions, I'm right here. Honestly, I'm just right here. I'm all over the internet. I'm all over the web. This is all written down on my podcast blog on my website, so you can copy and paste and print it out. I'm just at the other end of the phone, too. True. Area code 321-301-0331. That's my business phone number, Cannabaverum, LLC. Call me. I'd be happy to talk to you about any of your issues or concerns. You know, I love talking about potty pot pot because I know what all it can do for you. There's a lot more to be concerned about than just the pleasure of the high for those who advocate for adult use, and we're going to get to that. I'm not against adult use, but time and place, and we're talking about meds. So there's, you know, adult use, so much better for you than alcohol to relieve a headstorm of stress, emotions, and or physical aches and pains of the day. Whatever you're needing cannabis products, for whatever relief you're seeking, the product is here in some form and available if you jump through the right hoops. Science is telling us the truth about the power of this plant. We really can increase the quality of life in our world for all its living creatures with this amazing live plant called cannabis. Until next time, don't forget your masks when you go out. And smile great big when you see somebody so your eyes light up and they can tell. I'm so grateful for your time and look forward to all of your questions. Pax vobiscum, y'all. So that was the last segment. We ended up having 9 segments. That's a first. And it's been a lot of fun. I'll show you right now how I'm doing this and how I'm set up. My little corner of the room, you're going to laugh. Here we go. I'm going to show you what my little setup looks like. I've got all of my devices. I've got a little laptop here. I've got another little iPhone back there that I use. That's my backup. I've got my iPad here that I'm working off of that has all of my script on it. I've got my drink right there, and hey everybody, and over there you see my light on the bed, and in front of the light you see all those goodies that I'm going to do my next podcast about. So in order to get to be efficient with my week and my schedule, I'm now going to try to produce 2 podcasts on the same day. The one that I do for Cannabivarum, like the one that I just did, and my moments of clarity. They're a lot shorter. They usually only last, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. And so the next moment of clarity, I'm going to show you all those cannabis toys over there that I use, why I use them, why I choose them, and all that stuff. So look forward to some great Christmas ideas, all right? And we'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging in with us. I'm sending love and kisses to you. Keep your mask up. All right, be safe.